Taking young Howard with me, I remarried Daniel. After our marriage, Daniel gradually revealed his true nature. Even though he quit running the cafe and lived off my salary, Daniel acted arrogantly. One day, I was rushed to the hospital by ambulance. I was diagnosed with a brain tumor and given 6 months to live. However, the doctor said that with treatment, it could be completely cured. A week after being admitted to the hospital, Daniel showed up in my hospital room, bringing his female friend Rebecca. "A colleague told me that your family is wealthy, so I married an old woman with a kid for money. I didn't expect you to die before I could drain you dry." I was stunned that he had approached me for such a reason. "Your family's house and car sold for $2 million. I'm moving abroad with my mistress and secret child." I couldn't believe my ears. Immediately after, young Howard entered the hospital room and spoke encouraging words to me. "Mom, don't worry, I've got a plan." I vowed revenge against Daniel and Rebecca. I would make sure they understood what happens when you betray the wife who supported you all this time. My name is Monica, a 43-year-old housewife. I work while raising my high school freshman son, Howard. 10 years ago, I married Daniel, who is 3 years younger than me. Daniel ran a cafe on the first floor of the building where my company is located. It was my routine to have lunch there once a week with my colleagues. One holiday, I took Howard there for lunch, and Daniel, who brought us water and a wet towel, spoke to us. "You have a child, I see." "Yes. The omelet here is so delicious, I wanted him to try it." Daniel smiled warmly. "Thank you. Is his dad working?" "They got divorced and my dad lives far away." Howard answered innocently. "I see. Then it's okay if I ask you out on a date, right?" I stared at Daniel's handsome face. He looked younger than me, had a refreshing aura, and seemed very popular. I thought he was joking and laughed it off, but Daniel continued to ask me out every time I visited. When I finally gave in and agreed to a date, he was as happy as a child. During our relationship, we went out to eat and watch movies, and we even took Howard to amusement parks. A year later, I accepted Daniel's proposal, and we got married. This time, I was determined to find happiness with Howard. I vowed that I would get revenge, but my hopes were quickly dashed. I had heard before we got married that Daniel had a lot of friends. He was particularly close with 4 friends from high school. Every Wednesday, the cafe's day off, he would drive an hour to his hometown to hang out, drinking, fishing, and playing golf like he was still single. His friends were often stock traders, CEOs, or freelancers who had flexible schedules. The problem was his generosity. Daniel would always treat his friends to drinks and meals. It wouldn't have been an issue if he used his own allowance, but he would spend it all at the beginning of the month and then come begging to me. "Please, Monica. Lend me $600. "Again? You haven't paid back what you already owe." "I'll pay you back eventually." Smiling, Daniel tried to justify himself. "You're spending too much on entertainment. How about having meals at home instead?" "That makes sense." So, Daniel started hosting drinking parties at our house every week. When I returned home with Howard, the living room was already in the middle of a boozy gathering. The smell of alcohol and crude laughter hit me as soon as I opened the front door, making me grimace. "Oh, you're finally back. Hurry up and make some snacks." "I'll start dinner first." "What? The gratin and soup I prepared are gone." I was shocked to find the fridge empty, and Daniel laughed. "You were late, so I thought you didn't need them and ate them. Anyway, hurry up and make something." "Aaron, what do you want to eat?" "I'd like some snacks that go well with beer." "What about you, Rebecca?" "I'd love an avocado and boiled egg salad." "If you're good at cooking, it should be quick, right?" Their drunken requests irritated me. "It's impossible without the ingredients." "Mom, I'm hungry." "Just wait a moment, I'll heat up some pizza." I knelt down to pat Howard's head, then turned back to Daniel. "Daniel, they're your guests. You take care of them. I'm busy enough taking care of Howard." Daniel's face turned noticeably sour.
Don't use being tired as an excuse. You were the one who suggested having them here.
Daniel, it's okay. Let's go out. Sorry about this. What an unhelpful wife. Daniel spat out, leading his friends out the door. I wished they would stay away, but 30 minutes later, they returned with more alcohol and snacks, resuming their party. Their slurred speech and loud laughter echoed throughout the house. Howard and I could only fall asleep in our upstairs bedroom after they finally left in the middle of the night. This weekly ordeal continued, and whenever I protested, Daniel would get furious. Gradually, my frustration grew. Even so, Daniel had his good points. He was genuinely happy for me when I got a promotion and never envied my success.
Wow, you're a supervisor now. Your salary's going up too, right?
Seeing his genuine happiness, I couldn't help but smile too. However, Daniel's stock rose only for a moment. As soon as Howard entered junior high school, Daniel suddenly closed the cafe.
It was doing pretty well, wasn't it? Why did you close it?
Monica's earning enough, so why do I need to work too? Daniel twisted his mouth into a smile, leaving me speechless.
Well, managing people is tough. I got tired of it.
Is that so?
So, what are you going to do next?
Daniel shook his head.
I'm gonna take it easy for a while and then start doing some computer work from home.
He said it so casually that I felt a wave of anxiety.
According to a friend, it requires specialized knowledge and it's tough to make a high income.
Huh? Anyone can do that stuff. Daniel laughed it off.
You know, from now on, I'll manage the household finances. Since I'll be home, I'll handle the chores too.
Really? That would be a big help. I handed over the bank card where my salary was deposited to Daniel. Taxes, condo fees, and utilities were paid by credit card, so I just withdrew my allowance first and checked the finances through the app Daniel used for bookkeeping. Compared to running a cafe, managing household finances should be a lot easier. For the first month, Daniel diligently studied, reading specialized books and taking online computer courses. He said he didn't have any money, so I bought him a new computer, a desk, and paid for the courses. I tried to stay positive, thinking it would lead to re-employment. But Daniel quickly got bored and started asking for my savings.
I'm gonna make a fortune in stocks. I'll pay you back tenfold. I don't believe you. And what about helping with the chores? You stay up playing games till dawn and don't even help with taking out the trash.
When I raised my voice, Daniel clicked his tongue.
I'm too busy for that. Just give me $20,000 already. Don't you trust your own husband? I don't. If you really want to do it, use your own money.
When I flatly refused, Daniel glared at me resentfully.
That's why I hate stubborn women.
Fine, whatever. I mistakenly thought Daniel had given up. But later, when I checked Howard's bank account, I felt my blood run cold. Daniel had used up the $40,000 of Howard's money we had saved. Seeing the balance of $2, I collapsed to my knees. In a panic, I checked my own account balance and nearly fainted. All that was left of my salary was a few coins.
Recently, I've been the one doing most of the grocery shopping and buying daily necessities because Daniel couldn't be bothered. I was thinking of taking back the card. But I never imagined he'd squander it on other things.
When I confronted Daniel after he came home, he sulkily started making excuses.
I do buy tissues and detergent, don't I? There's no way your salary would just disappear like that.
Daniel scowled irritably and shook his head.
So what? It's okay to waste a little. You earn a lot, and your dad was a CEO. If things get bad, just sell the fancy car and the mansion. Are you serious? Both of those are the inheritance I received from my parents.
When I shouted in anger, Daniel glared at me with intense eyes and threw the credit card he took out of his wallet onto the floor.
Shut up. Just because you make a bit of money doesn't mean you can act all high and mighty.
He turned his back on me and stormed out of the house. I looked up the stairs and saw Howard in his pajamas, rubbing his eyes.
Mom, did you guys fight again? Sorry, did we wake you? Don't worry about it.
Forcing a smile, I reassured him, and he nodded and went back to his room. From that day on, Daniel was rarely home. Even though he still didn't work outside, and despite the computer courses he took, which he eventually quit, saying, "It wasn't for me," he spent his time playing games but started going out after our fight. When I left for work, I could hear him snoring from behind the study door. By the time Howard and I came home in the evening, he was already out. He wouldn't return until after midnight. So, during the week, Howard and I hardly saw or talked to Daniel. At a critical age, my child had a father who was unemployed. And he stayed out late without telling us where he was going. This was the worst environment for a growing child. I was increasingly anxious, feeling the need to do something, but work and household chores left me with no energy. To make matters worse, the headaches that had plagued me for some time were getting worse by the day, making life unbearable. When the weather was bad, dizziness and nausea would hit me hard, but I couldn't take time off work as I needed to save my leave for when Howard got sick or injured. Even on weekends when Daniel was home, he wouldn't even look at Howard, just lounging on the sofa and playing games all day. When Howard tried to talk to him, he would brush him off irritably, showing no fatherly qualities at all. I always had to mediate between the two of them, and dealing with this every week was wearing me out. That day, I felt especially unwell. My head felt like it was splitting, and the nausea and dizziness were severe. I couldn't even eat. But I couldn't just leave the two of them alone, so I interrupted making dinner and tried to soothe them. "Daniel, stop picking on Howard. And Howard, don't talk to your dad like that." As I spoke, my vision suddenly went dark. "What's happening?" I was confused. Then, I blacked out. When I slowly opened my heavy eyelids, the smell of disinfectant hit my nose. I saw a white ceiling above me. Where am I? As I slowly moved my head, I saw Howard at my side. He had tears in his eyes and his lips were trembling. "Mom." Seeing Howard's tears fall, I was taken aback.
What's wrong? This is a hospital, right?
I was lying in bed with an 4 drip attached to my left wrist. The brightness of the room felt strange.
Wait, it was night just a moment ago, right?
"Mom, you've been sleeping for an entire day and night." Oh, that's why Howard is in his uniform, I realized. Howard looked relieved.
Thank goodness. I was worried you wouldn't wake up. Sorry to make you worry.
Since there were no open spots in the shared rooms, I had been put in a private room. "Where's your dad?" I asked, and Howard responded with a sullen face.
He chased after the ambulance in his car when I got in with you. But when he heard it might take a while for you to wake up, he went home. Tell me to call him when you wake up.
I see. I wasn't surprised.
He's unemployed. The least he could do is stay with you at a time like this.
After venting for a while, Howard said he would contact Daniel and stepped out of the room. A little while after Howard returned, Daniel came into the room with the doctor.
"Hey, you look pretty good,"
Daniel said with a smirk, making the doctor frown.
I laughed when I heard. "What are you talking about?"
My head was splitting with pain, so I didn't want to talk much, but I had no choice but to respond. Seeing this, Howard looked anxious.
"Dad, you should let the doctor explain."
Ignoring Howard, Daniel continued smirking.
"You've got a brain tumor and only 6 months to live."
I was stunned and stared at Daniel's grinning face. I thought I had misheard. Or maybe it was one of Daniel's bad jokes. But the doctor looked grim, and Howard was on the verge of tears again.
"Daniel, I told you I would inform her."
"Dad, what are you doing here? Just leave already." Howard's face was red with anger. Okay. Laughing loudly, Daniel left the room, and Howard muttered angrily.
"I don't ever want to call him Dad again."
I hung my head. I felt pathetic for pushing gentle Howard to say something like that. But for now, I had to face my illness.
Doctor, is it true that I only have 6 months left?
I asked fearfully, and the doctor confirmed it straightforwardly.
Yes, it's true.
My vision went dark. So, it really is true. I glanced at Howard's innocent face, and my heart ached. Do I really have to leave this child with that man? I wished I could live long enough to see him become an adult. As I bit my lip and held back my tears, the doctor continued speaking.
However, that's only if you leave it untreated.
I quickly looked up, and the doctor, with a calm expression, spoke.
Your husband didn't listen to the whole story and jumped to conclusions. Wait, does that mean Mom can be saved?
The doctor nodded at Howard, who looked hopeful.
With chemotherapy and surgery to remove the tumor, there's a good chance for a full recovery.
Thank goodness. Mom. Howard burst into tears, not caring who saw him. I also shed tears of relief. Mom, you'll get the treatment, right?
Of course. Doctor, please take care of it. We'll discuss the treatment plan tomorrow morning.
Yes, thank you. The next morning, I received an explanation about the treatment plan in the consultation room. I tried to explain it to Daniel, who was mistaken, but he ignored my messages and wouldn't answer my calls, so I gave up. Then, a week later, Daniel suddenly appeared in my hospital room. He had a woman with a small child in her arms. I was lying in bed receiving chemotherapy through and for, and I moved only my eyes to see who it was. I recognized her as Rebecca, one of Daniel's friends who used to come to our house frequently. As soon as she entered, she started laughing at me.
So, you only have 6 months to live?
Poor thing.
I'm the one who's pitiful.
Daniel pouted.
A colleague told me her family was wealthy, so I married an old woman with a kid. I didn't expect her to die before I could milk her dry.
I was stunned that he had approached me for such a reason. I was so happy he married me, despite me being older and having a child. I felt utterly helpless, but the nausea from the treatment was so bad that I couldn't even muster the energy to complain to Daniel.
I sold your family's house and car for $2 million. I'm moving abroad with my mistress and her kid.
I couldn't believe my ears.
What did you just say?
Yes, I'm Daniel's mistress. Rebecca said in a sing-song voice. If you can't do the housework or work, you're useless now.
Don't worry, I'm gonna leave your son with your parents. Now you can die in peace.
With a big smile, he shoved the divorce papers in my face.
I'm gonna file these, so sign them right away.
Without the energy to resist, I adjusted the bed to sit up and signed the papers. I had been thinking about getting a divorce someday, so I wasn't attached to the marriage. But it felt wrong to be demanded a divorce by my freeloading husband who had a mistress and a secret child.
Getting sick and then being dumped by your husband, how miserable.
Well, do your best. Daniel and Rebecca mocked me and left. Right after they left, Howard came into the hospital room.
They were so loud. With the door open, everyone in the hallway could hear.
Howard, looking annoyed, then spoke to me in a strong voice despite my gloomy expression.
Mom, don't worry, I've got a plan.
He called someone from the hallway, and a man in a suit entered the room.
Aren't you from the real estate company managing my family's property?
Nice to see you again, Monica. I have something important to discuss. Howard left the room with the man, and I was left alone. Telling myself that I wasn't pitiful or miserable. Actually, getting sick gave me the chance to get divorced, and I felt relieved. But I wouldn't let him get away with it for free. I'll make sure he learns what happens when you betray the wife who supported you all this time. A month later, I called Daniel and Rebecca to the hospital room, saying I had something important to discuss. After finishing chemotherapy and surgery, I had regained enough energy to talk, so I decided it was time to settle things. Howard, who had just come back from school, was by my bedside, concerned about my health. Leaning against the raised bed, I smiled and talked with Howard as Daniel walked in, tilting his head. You look better than before. Yes. The headaches, nausea, dizziness, and ringing in my ears are gone,
and my appetite is back. Now I just need to regain my strength and wait for my hair to grow back,"
I said, touching the knit cap on my head, and Howard looked a bit worried.
"You're going back to work next month, right? Don't overdo it. I can cover my own allowance with my part-time job." "Thanks, but I'm eager to get back to work."
Rebecca gave me a strange look.
"So, you're going back to work?" They must be really short-staffed to let someone who's about to die work. Monica's company is a small business. If she can get promoted to supervisor, it would be pretty lame,"
Daniel smugly explained to Rebecca, and I gave a faint smile. He had depended on me without a job, yet he spoke like that. Even Howard earned his allowance from a part-time job.
"Yes, they're short-staffed, but I'm being discharged the day after tomorrow, so I want to get back to work soon."
Daniel and Rebecca's jaws dropped. Rebecca, looking confused, asked me for confirmation.
"What? Discharged? But you have 6 months to live, right?" "Rebecca, she's in home care. There's nothing they can do, so she's just supposed to live out her time as she likes."
Howard was trying to hold back laughter as Daniel pretended to know everything. Being kind, I explained it simply to Daniel and Rebecca.
"We used chemotherapy to shrink the tumor, then remove it with surgery. It was malignant, but my language functions were preserved, and the doctor said working in the future shouldn't be an issue." "Huh, really?" "Of course, I'll need regular checkups and medication, but for now, my life is saved."
Daniel finally seemed to understand. With a tense face, he asked me,
"So, the 6 months to live was—" "You're misunderstanding. You didn't listen to the doctor until the end and jumped to conclusions. There was always a good chance of recovery with treatment."
Rebecca's eyes narrowed. She angrily grabbed Daniel.
"Wait a minute, that's not what we agreed on. We were supposed to sell her assets and split the money since she'd be gone. What now?" "I'm sorry."
Seeing Rebecca's frantic behavior, Daniel looked scared.
"We won't even get the life insurance payout. I thought we could live it up for the rest of our lives." "Hey!"
Howard spoke up, addressing Rebecca in a flat tone.
"If you want to live it up for the rest of your lives, you'll need about $10 million together." "What?"
Daniel and Rebecca were stunned.
"Yeah, if you live modestly, maybe not, but if you're living it up overseas, $2 million will disappear in no time. You're both adults, but you don't seem to know much."
Howard laughed at them, making Daniel and Rebecca look at each other awkwardly.
"Shut up. You're just a kid. That's why I never liked you."
"I knew that."
"You pretended to be nice in front of Mom, but you were always unpleasant when it was just the two of us."
I was inwardly surprised by Howard's calm words. Howard had seen through Daniel's character before I did.
"I tolerated it because you were nice to Mom, but you're really the worst."
I gently patted Howard's back, which was trembling with anger. "Thank you, Howard. I'm sorry for being such a bad mother."
"And Daniel, did you check who the beneficiary of the insurance is?"
I asked, half amused.
"Huh? I took out new insurance after we got married, but all the beneficiaries are Howard."
Daniel's eyes widened.
"When you get married, you're supposed to make your husband the beneficiary,"
he shouted, stepping closer to me.
"Not necessarily. Do you even remember signing the insurance documents, Daniel?" "Huh? Now that you mention it, I don't remember."
Rebecca exploded in anger at Daniel, who was scratching his head.
"Why didn't you check?" "I'm sorry." "Oh, but the money from selling her car and house will go into my account."
I couldn't hold back and burst out laughing. Howard, standing next to me, also doubled over with laughter.
"What's so funny?" "What you did was forgery."
I pointed out sharply to Daniel, who was pouting.
"Daniel, you forged my handwriting on those documents, didn't you?" "Recently, someone from the real estate company managing my family's property came to the hospital. They said they couldn't proceed due to liability issues."
"Naturally."
"Since the staff called our home, I took measures to ensure Dad couldn't do anything rash."
Howard gave Daniel a sharp look and continued.
We also got a call from the used car dealership. They noticed the handwriting didn't match and wanted to confirm with the owner. So, I told them to discard the documents.
Daniel and Rebecca's faces twisted in anger.
Damn, I thought I could get away with it.
Don't you know?
It's a serious crime.
Despite Howard's words, neither Daniel nor Rebecca showed any remorse, only frustration.
Damn it, my grand plan is ruined. You're such an unreliable man. You've always been sloppy.
Rebecca pouted, and I smiled at her.
Isn't that you, Rebecca?
Huh?
I knew you had a mistress. Daniel, an unemployed man, comes home late every night smelling of perfume.
Rebecca looked shocked at my words.
Daniel, you told me you got a job at a big company, right?
Daniel, looking embarrassed, averted his eyes.
You said you were earning more than you did as a cafe owner. That's why you could buy me high-end clothes and bags and even pay for child support, right? Wow, so you were spending my savings and mom's salary on your mistress. Is that true, Daniel?
Don't call me unemployed. I'm currently studying investments. I'm gonna make a fortune soon. Rebecca held her forehead, shaking her head.
Unbelievable. You were deceiving me.
Rebecca approached Daniel, who was sulking, and rebuked him with a pained expression.
You've liked me since high school, right? But you lied so easily. That's terrible.
You can talk. At that point, I twisted my body and opened the drawer under the TV stand. I pulled out a large envelope and emptied its contents onto the table, revealing several photos. Rebecca's face turned pale as she saw them.
The other day when Daniel brought you to the hospital, I was surprised. Not because Daniel brought his mistress, but because his mistress was you, Rebecca.
The photos showed Rebecca, not with Daniel, but with Daniel's best friend Aaron, arm in arm, entering a hotel with smiles on their faces.
I saw you flirting with Aaron several times when you came to my house. When I had a private investigator look into Daniel's affairs, they found out that you were still involved with Aaron. So, who's the father of your child?
I glanced at Daniel, who had turned pale and was glaring at Rebecca.
You told me Aaron was just a childhood friend. Were you seeing both of us?
Rebecca thought for a moment, then realizing she couldn't lie her way out, she brazenly admitted it.
Well, Aaron confessed to me. He said he'd always loved me. So, I decided to date both of you.
She tilted her head cutely and then snorted.
Oh, Daniel, I'm so disappointed in you. Being a leech off your wife. And now it looks like we won't get the $2 million. That's my line. After all that spending, don't mess with me.
Daniel shouted, furious, while Rebecca smiled and retorted.
I was holding off Aaron's proposal because moving abroad with you seemed appealing. But now I see that Aaron, with his stable job at a big company, is the better choice. What did you say, you witch? I'll do a DNA test, and if it's your child, I'll demand child support. Goodbye.
Rebecca waved at Daniel and walked out of the room, the sound of her heels echoing. Daniel, still angry, cursed under his breath.
She was the class idol back in school. But I guess even she's gotten brazen with age. Useless.
Then he turned to Howard and me. I was planning to live leisurely abroad, but now it's all ruined. Becoming part of your family was a mistake. Give me my life back. With that, Daniel stormed out, shoulders heaving. A month later, I was discharged from the hospital and resumed work, mainly from home. Howard helped with the housework, and I took it easy. Although my health had stabilized, I was still struggling to get in touch with Daniel to discuss the misuse of savings and child support. He would read my messages but never replied, and he didn't return my calls, even when I left voicemails. One day, while having dinner with Howard, my phone rang. It was Daniel. Finally. I sighed in relief and answered the call on speaker.
You cut off my card, didn't you? No, it's not your card.
I replied coolly.
When you lost your job, you couldn't renew your credit card, so you begged me for help. I got you a family card under my name.
Did you forget?
What? And yet, you racked up debt on it with your payments for Rebecca. I work for myself and Howard, not for your mistress.
I shouted, frustrated, and Daniel sniffled.
This is all your fault. What? You were always paying attention to Howard and neglected me. I didn't want to cheat, but I was lonely.
I almost laughed at his childish reasoning.
Anyway, you'll be getting a certified letter about the payments. We'll handle this through my lawyer. Goodbye.
As I was about to hang up, Daniel pleaded.
Please, help me. Meet our demands first before asking for anything.
I said coldly and ended the call.
I've got a great idea. You should sell the car and the house, then use the money to pay off my debt. Great plan, right?
I exchanged a look with Howard. This man has finally lost his mind.
My parents even disowned me. When I went to ask for money, they threw me out, saying they wouldn't give me a dime. Can you believe that? We're family.
Yeah, I can believe that. Howard smirked. While I was in the hospital, Howard had visited his grandparents to explain the divorce and the reasons behind it. Though not particularly close, his grandparents adored Howard. Concerned about their reputation, they were furious about the situation, and my father-in-law called to apologize to me immediately. It was no surprise they were angry when Daniel came begging for money. As I was about to hang up, Howard took the phone from me and spoke to Daniel.
Dad, where are you now? At the motel near the station. Are you gonna help me?
We'll come over, just wait there. After hanging up, Howard smiled at my puzzled expression and made another call. 30 minutes later, my phone rang again. As soon as I answered, Daniel's angry voice shouted.
You called the cops on me, didn't you?
I did. Howard replied calmly.
You tried to change the names on Mom's car and house to sell them. The police said they needed to question you about it. The detective was having a hard time catching you since you're unemployed and homeless. It's our civic duty to help the investigation.
Daniel's voice turned to pleading through tears.
Are you really gonna abandon your family? You're heartless. Are you Daniel Johnson? Please come with us to the station. Shut up, I'm busy right now.
Daniel's angry roar was met with a firm response from the police.
If you resist, you'll be charged with obstructing justice. Don't try to run.
The sound of a commotion at the cafe came through the phone before the call was disconnected. The next morning, the news reported Daniel's arrest at the internet cafe. After the divorce, Daniel had moved in with Rebecca, but she had thrown him out, leaving him homeless. Rejected by his parents and without money to rent a place, he had been living in a motel. When he was arrested, he had only $4 on him. He had been begging me to pay over $1,400 in motel fees. Unshaven, in a shabby t-shirt and shorts, Daniel struggled and cursed at the police, but ultimately gave up and was taken away in a police car. Howard and I stopped eating our breakfast, staring at the TV screen at his pathetic sight.
By the way, I saw Rebecca the other day on my way back from school.
As the news changed to another story, Howard said while eating his eggs.
She was clinging to Aaron and crying in the park. She looked like a mess without makeup and with her hair all over the place, like an old lady. I barely recognized her.
I felt pity for her, remembering how beautiful she looked when she visited the hospital.
I heard from Daniel's friends that Rebecca was pressuring Aaron to marry her because she got pregnant with his child. But he found out she was also seeing Daniel and got furious. Aaron broke off the engagement.
Howard nodded deeply.
Aaron is a victim too. The DNA test showed the child was Aaron's, so he's going to take care of the child. It's her own fault, but it's going to be tough for her.
Howard spoke calmly, finished his breakfast, and left for school in good spirits. Although Daniel was arrested, it was his first offense, so he was given a suspended sentence and released the next day. His parents were shocked to see their son's pathetic state on TV and went to the police station to pick him up. They paid the fees at the motel and deposited money into my account. This included $40,000 of savings Daniel had used, and $20,000 for the credit card expenses spent on Rebecca. Seeing Daniel in such a pitiful state, his parents took him back to their house and arranged for him to work at a relative's factory. Under their strict supervision, Daniel's salary and personal life were managed, and he deposited $1,000 in child support into my account every month. He worked tirelessly from early morning until late at night to repay the $120,000 his parents had advanced for him. Rebecca, who had been neglecting her child while partying, begged her parents for help, but they were furious after hearing from Aaron about the broken engagement. Kicked out of her family home and having lost custody of her child to Aaron, Rebecca now worked in a restaurant by day and a bar by night. 6 months after divorcing Daniel, my health had significantly improved, so I transferred to a department with no overtime or weekend work and resumed working as before. My colleagues and superiors welcomed me back with smiles, filling my heart with gratitude. The thought of not having to endure Daniel's nasty comments and verbal abuse made me incredibly happy every day. I wished I had divorced him sooner to feel this refreshed. Though both marriages failed, I realized how important Howard is to me. From now on, I'll take care of my health and start a new life with Howard by my side.